He was more vocal, waving at cameras, saying things both on his way in and out of court. He was, as our own Gene Casares described him, much more mild-mannered this time around. Did not have much of a reaction in court. Didn't have too much of a reaction on the way in or out of court. The one sort of, you can't even call it an outburst, but the one reaction that got a lot of attention came in court during the prosecution's closing arguments when the prosecutor said that Bill Cosby appeared to be laughing.
Hold on a second. Here's Bill Cosby approaching the microphone. Let's see if he says anything. You saw him raise his hand. Let's just listen to him. We are very disappointed by the verdict. We don't think Mr. Cosby is guilty of anything, and the fight is not over. Thank you. Yes, very strongly.
Mr. Cosby prepared to go to prison. Andrew, can we have a word with Mr. Cosby? You prepared to go to prison, sir?
All right, so I didn't hear from Bill Cosby directly. His attorney, the well-known criminal defense attorney, Tom Mesereau, clearly expressing his disappointment. The fight, he said, is not over. Laura, this got sort of personal between the attorneys representing the accusers and Tom Mesereau. You heard Gloria Allred take that direct swipe at him in her statement.
Certainly, and of course, look at the stark contrast between the way Tom Mesereau, already at his vehicle, was called back by Representative Bill Cosby to then come in front. A very different presser was given by the attorney for Bill Cosby. But you're right. The idea that there's been animosity and an adversarial relationship is also reflected in the Court of Public Opinion's view on the reason to bring this case in the first instance. Remember, it was the 11th hour, just days shy of the statute of limitations period lapsing before the new DA, newly elected on a campaign promise to try to ensure that there was justice against Bill Cosby, who used the campaign podium to obliterate the justification of the former DA decision not to actually prosecute Bill Cosby, used time and again, and it was a point of contention for a variety of reasons. There was the optics of the fact that this was, although it was Bill Cosby, who is known as America's father because of his Bill Cosby or the Cosby Show years, many people viewed this as an attack and a targeting of a particular African-American man of extreme prominence. There were others who viewed this decision to prosecute him as a form of a phrase we know very well in these days, a witch hunt. But ultimately what you see here was a battle between two different sets of attorneys, one including Gloria Allred, who represents, she said, over 30 of the alleged accusers of Bill Cosby. That number in and of itself has extreme gravitas, but so does her words and statements. Remember, you actually heard her say, well, Tom Mesereau, you tried, you failed. It wasn't an attack even on Bill Cosby and his conduct per se. It seemed to be more personal in nature, but it's not uncommon for an attorney who has all these different clients to take personal issue with what's happening on the other side. But again, it brings us back consistently to the notion that Bill Cosby changed his defense team. He changed his defense strategy. He changed the way in which they decided to go after Andrea Constant, and that, combined with the judge's decision to allow the case to unfold differently, ultimately led to this conviction on 3 separate counts.
You know, Erica Hill is with us. Erica, it was June of last year when there was a hung jury, and there's been a lot developing in this Me Too movement over the past year. Do you believe that the current environment around the country had an impact on these jurors?
You know, I think the jurors we do know that when the jurors were being questioned during jury selection, that they were asked if they were familiar with the Me Too movement. So that question was out there. And I think I want to bring in Mesereau on this one. Oftentimes we'll say, well, does this have an impact on the jury? The jury, they needed to know the jury was aware of that. Although we should point out, if this jury is doing their job properly, right, they would not necessarily let that influence their decision. They're only weighing the